cycle of rebirth, and cosmology. Buddha never said the cycle of rebirth refers to individual beings. It is well known that no self and dependent origination is the truth that Buddha realized. Remember, what no self and dependent origination mean? That no being in the universe can exist by itself, because it did not come into existence by its own free will. It also means things cannot exist on their own. In the relative world, there must be a subject that perceives and an object that is perceived. Existence is possible only through relativity. Being A can exist only when being B exists. If B disappears, A will also disappear according to the law of relative manifestation. No being can exist by itself and on its own. Therefore, even if an individual does manifest, he does not have I as subjectivity within. That means no self. Why is this the case? Because an individual being is subject to dependent origination. If there is a concept of rebirth, we can consider it as the rebirth of dependent origination, because from the perspective of totality, one living being continues giving birth to another. Nowadays, however, Buddhists believe rebirth in the sense that an individual is born, dies, and will be reborn as a dog, a frog, a human, etc. Logically speaking, if all individual spirits, including 7 billion people on Earth, rotate among each other, how could this happen? Subjectivity means that it can exist on its own and never change eternally. But when it is born without free will and cannot exist by itself, how can it be a subject? People are missing this simple notion. The subject is only one and operates the whole. Though each of the trillions of cells in our body don't mean that much individually, the body cannot exist without the unity of those cells. From the perspective of the relationship between the whole and an individual, the term rebirth means that the whole revolves interdependently according to the principle of dependent origination. The eternal rebirth of an individual as a subject is impossible because there are countless entities of rebirth. Animals, insects, etc., including billions of humans. All beings are illusions due to existence by dependent origination, because all beings in the relative world are destined to live and die, and birth and death exist in a pair. All relative beings in the manifested universe exist in pairs as a relative concept. All living beings appear in the context of yin-yang. From a tiny dust mote to the entire universe, all beings exist in the harmony of yin-yang. So this means that yin and yang, body and mind comprising an individual entity of relativity, will be born simultaneously, live together, and die at the same time, when there is no more yin-yang function. Human beings cannot escape that principle. We have to resolve the problem of living and death, and why the universe has it, because life does exist within the universe. We cannot know life without resolving the problem of the universe. Neither can we understand death. But the concept of the universe appeared about 2,500 years ago, and was only correctly understood less than a few hundred years ago. Before that, there was no such concept, only one of sky and earth. The concept of the universe began to take shape when science started to appear. Newton is known as the father of modern science. He discovered the famous universal law of gravity. But at the beginning of the 20th century, The theory of gravity was replaced by albeit Einstein's theory of relativity. Why? Simply speaking, because the theory of gravity was only a relative principle, not absolute. There can never be such an absolute principle, because all principles applicable to all materials in the universe function as relativity. It was an important realization and served as a tremendous leap of perception that became a landmark in the spiritual history of humanity. The truth came to a collapse. The belief in that truth of philosophy, science, and all humanity of the world up until the 19th century had been broken. It was done with just one different point of view or perspective. People observed things on Earth because they lived on the Earth, believing that the principle of gravity was true. And yet, if you were watching from outer space, that truth could be applied only on Earth, like a frog in a well. Therefore, the theory of relativity has become tremendously important. We can say that the concept of the universe only really started at that time. Science before the 19th century did not apply to the universe, but only to Earth, supported by human-oriented ideas. Einstein discovered the fact that even the speed of light needs to be cognized by relativity. The speed of light is always the same in any place or situation. For example, light from the headlight of a moving car or from a standstill. If I am riding on a spaceship able to fly at the same speed as light, does light seem to pass by or not? Light will not seem to move. But if I stand by the light passing by, I will perceive the light as tremendously fast. Perception according to the sense of the body is all relative. The speed of light will not change, but can be changed according to the situation of an observer. However, even the theory of relativity, which had replaced Newton's law of gravity and came to be believed as truth, has come to be replaced by quantum theory. Recently, the unified field theory has been introduced, which should be absolute, and yet, it has not been completed by physicists. While the theory of relativity is at the universal level, but serves as the principle of the manifested world, the unified field theory explains that all physical entities, though seemingly different, are just one thing or substance, indistinguishable from each other. Therefore, the theory of relativity is the principle only of the phenomenal world. There is not even any such principle of relativity, if you explore more deeply all the way to the source. It is, however, another important discovery by Einstein that he replaced the theory, as he had formulated it so far, in which all events happen by collisions between materials, because of their manifested appearances. It is the materials that appear through the collision between events. That is, while the events are the source, the materials are manifested phenomena. For example, if you turn on one of the early television sets that used a bronze tube, at first, there appears a single dot, and then pictures come out on the screen. That one dot comes from the combined events of collision among many light waves. But we cannot see the image in the collision between light waves, only the dot. And later we see the manifestations as pictures on screen. Simply speaking, the phenomena that we can see with our eyes are not the fundamental truth. Science has now developed, amazingly. It is, however, a limitation that science views the truth only from the perspective of the manifested world. It can only discover the truth of phenomena already manifested. But phenomena manifest in a state of relativity. That is only the form sac. Can we discover the non-manifest? Through science, it is impossible to do so. To discover the non-manifest, we have to be able to observe it. It is, therefore, impossible for us to perceive any non-difference between the form, sac, and the empty, gong, the absolute, due to our need to cling to manifested appearance. That is possible only through enlightenment.